You won't believe how many 80s and 90s cartoons just stopped. One day you're watching heroes save the galaxy, and the next, boom, nothing. No finale, no answers, just dead air and reruns. This is part 2 of our journey through the most infuriating unfinished stories in animation history. We're talking space cats, mutant bikers, and treasure hunters left stranded mid-quest. If you grew up waiting for the next episode that never came, this one's for you. Hit that super thanks to keep these forgotten shows alive, and check the DVD links in the description if you want to relive the pain firsthand. Because these aren't just cliffhangers, they're emotional hostage situations that lasted decades. Let's jump in.
Thunder! 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 Thundercats! Ho!
If Saturday mornings had a Mount Rushmore, Thundercats would be carved right into it. A laser sword in one hand, 80s synths echoing across the clouds, it had everything. Mythic heroes, ancient relics, and the single most over-the-top theme song to ever melt a VHS speaker. For 4 seasons, Thundercats ruled TV like it owned the decade. Lion-O led his feline warriors through cosmic jungles, cursed pyramids, and toy aisle gold mines. But behind the roar, Filmation's thunder slowly faded. The final episode, Book of Omens, teased the biggest payoff yet. Lion-O unlocking the history of Thundera, finally mastering the Sword of Omens and setting up a battle that felt biblical. Fans were ready for a showdown of the century. Lion-O versus Mum-Ra, spirit versus sorcery, good versus undead evil.
Stand where you are, Mum-Ra. Evil may not enter the Book of Omens.
Instead, credits. No war, no catharsis, just a hard stop like someone yanked the tape. Turns out the writers had plans, a theatrical movie or a 5th season to close the saga. But by 1989, toy sales had crashed, animation budgets shrank, and the cat was quietly put down. For decades, fans debated what the Book of Omens really contained. Did Lion-O ever rebuild Thundera? Did the Thundercats ever go home? Or were they trapped in eternal reruns, forever repeating the same battles? And maybe that mystery is why Thundercats never truly died. The 2011 reboot tried to give closure. It added politics, grief, and lore worthy of Tolkien, but it was cancelled halfway through its story arc too. Then came Thundercats Roar in 2020, a meme-heavy parody that made fans nostalgic and furious all over again. The lesson? You can reboot a franchise, but you can't resurrect closure. Next up, the studio behind Thundercats decided, let's do it again, in space. And somehow, they managed to make the ending even more frustrating.
Commander Stargazer to Silverhawks, come in. Repeat, Stargazer to Silverhawks, come in. Over.
If Thundercats were the heart of the 80s adventure, Silverhawks was its chrome-plated soul. Imagine the same team saying, what if cats but astronauts and shiny? Thus came the galaxy of Limbo, half humans, half metal warriors soaring through vacuum on literal guitar riffs. The show looked like a glam rock album cover to life. Commander Stargazer, the grizzled cop in shades, led his metallic flock against Monstar, a name so aggressively 80s it probably wore spandex. But somewhere in those 65 episodes, the writers started hinting at something deeper. The Silverhawks questioning their humanity, Monstar evolving beyond cartoon villainy, and a thread tying everything back to Earth itself. Fans braced for the next step, a second season that would finally dig into the characters behind the armor. And then, radio silence. No finale, no conclusion, just an abrupt stop after the bounty hunters, where Monstar escapes again and Stargazer warns of something worse on the horizon. That something worse never arrived.
Ripping you off? I'll rip you apart if you don't watch your mouth. Get him out of here, hardware.
It wasn't because the audience stopped watching, it was because the toys stopped selling. Kenner, the merch partner, pulled the plug before Filmation could finish its plans. It's weirdly poetic, a show about part machines abandoned by the very machinery that created it. Even now, Silverhawks feels ahead of its time. Its synthwave soundtrack, its metallic animation style, that eerie loneliness of space. You can see its fingerprints on Guardians of the Galaxy and Voltron, Legendary Defender. But for fans who grew up waiting for Season 2, there's still that quiet ache, that feeling that somewhere Monstar is still out there laughing in rerun infinity. Then came a completely different kind of adventure, one that traded space for sea and ended up sinking before it reached the finish line. Let's have a look. Few shows in cartoon history reached for greatness like Pirates of Dark Water. It wasn't just another toy commercial. It was a full-blown fantasy saga about environmental decay, greed, and redemption. On the cursed planet Mur, a prince named Ren sought the 13 treasures of rule, ancient relics that could stop a spreading evil substance known as dark water.
I'm afraid no amount of Borka paste is going to keep us afloat, Ios. And we have too valuable a cargo to go down with the ship.
The 7 treasures of rule. Lose them and our whole world is sunk.
The animation was lush, the voice acting cinematic, and the world building rivaled anything Disney was doing at the time. By episode 21, Ren had found 8 treasures. That meant 5 were still out there, and the journey was cut to black. No finale, no explanation, just silence where an ending should have been. Fans were stunned. Pirates of Dark Water was halfway through its literal quest. It was like if Indiana Jones ended with him saying, "Well, I've got half the arc, guess that's good enough." The reasons were brutally practical. Animation was detailed and expensive, and toy sales lagged. Hanna-Barbera didn't know what to do with a show that was both epic and morally complex. The irony is that it was too good for its time. Serialized storytelling wasn't standard yet. Networks wanted self-contained episodes so they could air them in any order. Dark Water demanded patience, continuity, and emotional investment. 3 things 1990s Saturday mornings weren't built for. For years, fans begged for closure. Comics, fan scripts, and even a proposed movie surfaced online, but none delivered the lost 5 treasures. The mystery became a myth, and maybe that's fitting. The show itself was about chasing something just out of reach, and that's exactly what fans have been doing ever since. But if you thought Pirates of Dark Water drowned too early, wait until you see what happens when a children's cartoon tries to tackle war, slavery, and bioengineering.
We're getting a break with this storm. The Neo sensors won't be able to pick out anything in the middle of all that dust. Now's the perfect time to make a recon pass over that suspected underground Neo complex. Frame up!
Before Western TV embraced animated influence, Exo Squad was already there, strapping its audience into armored mechs and asking questions about morality, race, and free will. Set in the 22nd century, humanity has colonized Mars and Venus, and created the Neo-Sapiens, a labor force bred for obedience. But when the oppressed rise up, war erupts across the solar system. What followed was shockingly mature storytelling for kids' TV. Death, betrayal, trauma, even propaganda arcs. This wasn't laser tag with morals, it was a serialized space war drama with consequences. And just as it reached its most ambitious point, the tease of a mysterious alien armada approaching Earth, the network yanked it off the air. Season's 2 finale showed humanity barely recovering from civil war, staring at incoming ships. Writers had already outlined Season 3, the alien invasion, new mech designs, even redemption for the villain Phaeton, whose final line was literally, "We are not done yet." Except they were.
We serve you and Phaeton.
It talks.
I am second brood. More smart.
Good for you. Now take your things to their quarters.
Universal killed the project when toy sales dipped. The production team had sketches, scripts, and even an unfinished opening animation sitting in storage. For years, fans hunted for leaks. Some concept art eventually surfaced online, confirming the alien designs were terrifying. Exo Squad could have evolved into the Battlestar Galactica of animation, a story about humanity facing its own creations and its cosmic karma. Instead, it became a ghost. Every now and then, old fans rewatch it and marvel at how something this daring ever made it to Saturday mornings. Once the dust settled in space, the next crew hit the streets instead, swapping mechs for motorcycles and laser fire for screaming guitar riffs. The 90s were obsessed with extreme animal heroes, turtles, sharks, hedgehogs, but none had the raw, greasy guitar riff energy of biker mice from Mars. Throttle, Moto, and Vinny weren't just mice. They were rock star freedom fighters on motorcycles escaping the destruction of Mars to save Earth from the same corporate parasites.
Well, must be Lardhead's day at the museum, huh? All goons half price.
And all mousies half mangled. Get 'em!
It was loud, brash, and full of cheese, literally and figuratively. Between explosions and quips, it slipped in surprisingly sharp commentary on pollution and corporate greed, and kids ate it up. But the story had a deeper thread, the dream of going home. Throughout 3 seasons, the mice kept talking about freeing Mars, rebuilding their planet, and reclaiming what was stolen. The final episodes finally set that up, the big return mission. Then, nothing. The series finale ends mid-moment, with the trio preparing to ride back to Mars. The engines rev, the guitars wail, and just before takeoff, fade to black. Fans waited. Merch stores promised new toys. Rumors said a movie was coming. But by 1996, the biker boom was over. A decade later, a 2006 reboot tried to reignite the engines. It had updated designs and snappier jokes, but emotionally, it ignored the cliffhanger entirely. The original characters acted like the Mars arc had never happened. For fans who'd waited since childhood to see their heroes go home, it felt like salt on a burned rubber wound. Still, Biker Mice remains beloved. Proof that sometimes the journey is louder than the destination. And speaking of journeys that never quite reach their punchline, our next hero wore blue tights, shouted "spoon," and vanished mid-laugh.
Wait a minute! That's one of the robots who stole my tribe! Well, I'll just get to the bottom of this. Spoon!
If you were a 90s kid who loved superheroes but couldn't take them seriously, the Tick was your guy. He was big, blue, loud, and possibly insane. A muscle-bound optimist shouting nonsense like "spoon" while punching evil in the face. But beneath the absurdity, the Tick was genius. It wasn't just parody, it was commentary. The show took every superhero cliche and dialed it up until it turned philosophical. What does it mean to be a hero when the villains are existentially confused chairmen and sewer dwellers with social anxiety? The writing was pretty sharp. Episodes flipped between slapstick and satire, poking fun at consumer culture, hero worship, and the emptiness of endless sequels. Ironically, all the things that would eventually define superhero movies. And then, just as it hit its stride, Fox canceled it. The last episode aired in 1996, The Tick vs. Education, and it wasn't even a finale, just another random misadventure. The show didn't say goodbye, didn't wrap arcs, didn't wink at the camera. It simply ended. No explanation and no such closure, just static and confusion. Fans expected more. The creative team had planned bigger, bolder stories, multi-episode arcs, a deeper dive into the Tick's mysterious origin, even a final showdown between good and bureaucracy. But budget cuts and network meddling killed it. And somehow, that made it funnier. Because The Tick was a parody that ended like the thing it mocked. Unfinished, nonsensical, trapped in syndication limbo. Years later, creator Ben Edlund tried to resurrect him, first in the live-action 2001 series with Patrick Warburton, which was brilliant but axed too soon. Then again in Amazon's darker 2016 reboot, which was even better and also canceled.
Your toast will never go bare again.
At this point, it feels like the universe itself won't let the Tick finish a story. He's cursed to exist forever in reruns, eternally shouting justice slogans into the void. Still, that weird immortality fits him perfectly. Because if there's one superhero who deserved to never end, it's the one who never learned how. If that ending felt abrupt, the next one didn't just stop, it disappeared mid-invasion, leaving fans stunned and silent. Now this one is a deep cut, and maybe the most ambitious show on this list. Invasion America wasn't colorful or toy-friendly. It was cinematic and surprisingly dark, a sci-fi thriller disguised as a cartoon. It aired on the WB in 1998, right at the weird crossroads where Saturday morning was fading and networks didn't know who animation was for anymore. The plot was bold. A teenage boy named David Carter discovers he's half alien, the child of a human mother and a Tyrussian warrior who came to Earth to stop an invasion. It had double agents, alien conspiracies, secret organizations, stuff that felt more like the X-Files than Animaniacs. The animation was sleek, the tone was dead serious, and the cast? Absolute legends. Leonard Nimoy, Michael Dorn, and even Tony Jay. It had the voice talent of an animated blockbuster, and it felt like one. But the WB didn't know what to do with it. Kids thought it was too adult. Adults never saw it because it aired at weird hours.
I'm no hero, and I don't intend to die like one.
Fine, I'll do it myself. I've got to get back to Maple Island.
By the time the 10th episode rolled around, the writing was on the wall. The finale left off on what might have been the most infuriating line in 90s animation. David escapes captivity, looks up at the stars, and says, "The war is coming." And then, nothing. No war, no follow-up, no season 2. It was like reading the first chapter of War of the Worlds and having the book end mid-sentence. Even worse, the creators later revealed they had the scripts written. The invasion, the betrayal arcs, the alien war on Earth, but the studio pulled the plug before they could animate it. Fans were devastated. A small but passionate community still posts storyboards and early concepts online, just to piece together what could have been. And that's the story of Invasion America, a series that tried to grow up before its audience was ready, and got buried for daring to be serious. But if that one left fans haunted, our next entry left them psychologically scarred. If you ever owned those tiny plastic playsets that opened into pocket-sized monster worlds, yeah, that was Mighty Max. And somehow, the cartoon based on those toys became one of the most surprisingly dark, emotionally complex kids shows of the 90s. The setup was classic adventure. Max, a sarcastic teenager, finds a magical cap that lets him travel through time and space. He's guided by Virgil, a talking bird-like sage, and protected by Norman, a Viking warrior voiced like pure granite.
Stop calling me that! I'm not mighty, I'm just a kid! These guys, waiting for me to lead them into Skullmaster's jaws, they're mighty. I mean, what if I say the wrong thing or if I lead us into a trap?
Together, they fight Skullmaster, a demonic overlord voiced by Tim Curry at his most unhinged. At first, it felt like an action comedy with time portals and monsters, but the show got weirdly deep fast. It explored destiny, sacrifice, and the crushing weight of being the chosen one. Then came the finale, Armageddon Out of Here. Max faces Skullmaster in a final battle that literally destroys time. The victory comes at a cost. The timeline collapses, and Max is thrown back to the beginning of the first episode. He remembers everything. He knows the pain, the losses, the ending, and he has to live it all again. It's an existential nightmare. No peace, no reset, just an endless loop of destiny. For a kid's cartoon, it was shockingly bleak. The kind of twist you don't fully process until years later. Fans debated for decades, was Max doomed, or was he given another chance to rewrite fate? The creators later said they planned a second season to answer that, one where Max learns to break the cycle and alter history. But the network canceled it right after the finale aired. So the final image of Mighty Max is a teenage boy smiling nervously, pretending not to know that the world is about to end again. Now for this next one, just wait to see what happened to the world's most famous barbarian when his finale got stolen by toy companies. Before The Witcher, before Game of Thrones, there was Conan the Adventurer, and somehow this blood-soaked barbarian got turned into a surprisingly wholesome Saturday morning hero.
That is not enough reason to fight them. They want our star metal! There is none. All of the star metal my father found was made into objects and sold. Snag knows this, so the veneer must know it.
The show reimagined Conan not as a brute, but as a noble warrior cursed by evil. His parents had been turned into stone by the serpent sorcerer Wrath Amon, and his quest was to free them while banishing evil from the land. It had everything: enchanted weapons, magic lore, and a surprisingly deep mythos about balance, destiny, and willpower. Each episode felt like a mini fantasy film, complete with moral lessons about honor, compassion, and courage. By the end of season 2, the tension was building toward the ultimate showdown. Conan had gathered his allies, mastered his powers, and was prepared to face the serpent god Set himself. Then came a serpent coil. The setup was perfect, the tone darker, the stakes higher, the gates to Set's dimension opened, and then the screen faded to black. To be continued. Except, it never was. The writers had already storyboarded the finale. An apocalyptic battle between Conan and Set would have closed the entire saga. But instead of funding it, the studio ordered a new spin-off, Conan and the Young Warriors. It reused the name, ditched the story, and replaced the characters with teens. It wasn't a sequel. It was a soft reboot designed to sell new toys. Fans were furious. After 2 years of build-up, they didn't get closure. They got a downgrade. The original voice actor even said in interviews that he recorded lines for the real ending, but the footage was never animated. So Conan the Adventurer ended like a sword mid-swing, frozen, unfinished, and waiting for a victory that never came. And finally, we wrap things up with a show so gloriously 90s it crashed and burned in the most spectacular way possible.
You'd better think of something.
I've thought of something.
Am I gonna like it?
You're gonna hate it. Hang on!
Oh
no! If you want the most so 90s it hurts concept imaginable, look no further. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was based on the underground comic Xenozoic Tales, where humanity emerges from centuries underground only to find dinosaurs roaming the earth again. And instead of being horrified, people just start driving vintage Cadillacs through the jungle. It was stylish and bursting with that early 90s eco-futurism, pollution, evolution, and rebellion all mashed into one neon action show. Jack Trenick, our grease-covered hero, was a mechanic philosopher who loved engines almost as much as he loved saving the planet. He and scientist Hannah Dundee fought corrupt politicians, poachers, and eco-tyrants, basically the world's first green punk duo. But beneath the cool factor, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs had a serious backbone. Every episode tackled environmental greed and resource exploitation, a theme that aged terrifyingly well. Then came the cliffhanger. In the final episode, Jack and Hannah uncover a conspiracy. The government plans to weaponize dinosaur DNA to control nature itself. Just as the plan goes public, an earthquake tears through the city. Buildings crumble, the land splits open, and the last thing we see is chaos swallowing everything. Fade to black. It was supposed to lead into a massive second season, a story about survival, power, and rebuilding civilization.
More of your half-baked Wassoon ideals?
With 3 trucks, there's a better chance that at least one will make it. We need their help.
Oh yeah, they were a big help with that slither.
The scripts were written, the models designed, and then the merchandise flopped. ABC pulled the plug. The series went extinct almost overnight. Fans were devastated, not because they didn't get more dinosaurs, but because they saw what could have been. This wasn't a silly kids cartoon. It was an eco-warning wrapped in roaring engines and prehistoric thunder. And 3 decades later, it's still one of the best-looking shows of its time. Proof that even the most absurd ideas can have a heart. And that's 10 more cartoon cliffhangers that still make fans mad. 10 shows that dared to dream big, only to be left hanging in midair, forever frozen in that dreaded phrase, to be continued. If you love this trip back through the forgotten corners of animation, hit that super thanks button to help keep these stories alive, and check the DVD links in the description if you want to revisit the shows that defined our childhood and haunted our endings. Because who knows, maybe one day these heroes will get their finales. Until then, they'll live on in the imaginations of every kid who sat too close to the TV, waiting for the next episode that never came.